So this week we are visiting the historic triangle, which if you don't know where that is Yorktown, Jamestown, and Williamsburg in Virginia. We're starting with the smallest and we're gonna work our way up to the biggest. So today is Yorktown. It's actually quite cold today, so we're trying to get Ian to wear his hat. You're saying, I'm not thrilled with my hat, Mama. But he sure does love, I love his jacket. It's fleece lined, so it's super warm. Bye-bye, hat.
So I learned today that the Yorktown battlefield is actually part of the National Park Service, so we did have to pay a fee to join be part of the National Park. The nice part is it gives us a discount to Jamestown when we go. Well, now we're gonna do the driving tour. It's the main attraction. They basically give you a map, and there's some stops that will be each important part of the battle.
And the driving tour is of the battlefield.
Correct.
Like Yorktown battlefield.
Yes, and we'll actually get to see the important spots along that way and see what happens. Okay.
I can't remember the last time I've seen a battlefield.
I think Gettysburg is last time for me.
Okay, so here's our map that's gonna help us on the driving tour.
It's called the Colonial Parkway. So and it says the auto route of Washington and Rochambeau historical trails. That was cool. But it connects Jamestown and Yorktown. We only have an hour to do this, by the way. So I have the app. I'm gonna see if we can figure out what it is. So this isn't gonna be like a history vlog because one, I only Wikipedia'd some things, but we just find it cool and encourage you guys to come out. Basically, this is just one of the examples where they rebuilt the earthworks. It's not exactly there, but you know, back then they're building trenches and hiding behind this. In this case, the one we happen to be filming at is the French ones with some of their cannons, because essentially, quick brief history, right? Yorktown is where the British were staying in this area, and then the American and French forces stormed it and ultimately made the British surrender, and that was pretty much the last major battle of the Revolutionary War. So we're at one of the French ones, the good people in this case, because I'm an American, and this was one of their positions that they held. Also, side note, this thing is way more massive of a battlefield. Like in my mind, I see a map, I'm like, oh, it's tiny, but it's huge. It's really big.
Well, I mean, there's a driving tour.
I know it says driving tour. Like in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, we'll walk to like where Hamilton. So by the way, the music Hamilton, he led one of the charges, obviously not the French one, but he led one of the charges at Yorktown. He had to fight for that position, and it's like, in my mind, it's like, oh, it's not that big, but there's thousands of men here, and it's huge. Boom! Bam! Boom!
There's the artillery.
So behind me is a farmer's house called Constantine Moore, and this is actually the house that he let George Washington and Cornwallis, who is the British commander, come and sign their terms of surrender. Like that's basically where they met and agreed to all of those. It was actually damaged a lot in the Civil War, and then they decided to reconstruct it. But it's so cool thinking back to like the 1700s when like a farmer used to live here, and then like he got to give up his home to like let some general sign some stuff. And then there's these tiny deer, well, tiny raccoon comparative, all over the place. They're just like in the tall grasses hiding. We've seen all kinds of deer. It's really cool. I like this place, but you're not allowed to feed them.
Because then they would no longer be tiny deer.
Oh.
They'd be fat deer.
Giant deer.
It was so cold out, so we are just highlighting some of our favorite stops on the drive tour, but it was a beautiful area to drive through and explore. In warmer seasons, there are hiking trails to walk around the battlefield as well. We ended our tour by stopping to see the Victory Monument, and then we headed downtown Yorktown itself, which is a beautiful river walk on York River, and we loved getting to see it decked out for Christmas.
We're going to the boardwalk along York River in historic Yorktown, and it's really cute in the area with all these buildings, and it's cute. It's a brick boardwalk.
Yeah,
so is it really a boardwalk?
It's not a boardwalk.
It's a brick walk.
It's very cold, by the way.
Yeah, so there's an ice cream place here, and we're kind of like, eh.
So the last place that we went on an adventure to was Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm not gonna lie, this kind of feels like a cultural whiplash, which we love both. Like they're both so unique and special. Like we're in the same country and we're probably like how many hours? Probably like a 10-hour drive like apart, but like total whiplash. Like the people, the culture, the history, all of it's so different. So I love that the United States has that, where you can like go from one to the other extremes of history in such a short distance. So cute.
I know. Found out in the historic area, most places are closed like Monday night because they don't get as much business.
And of course today is Monday.
Yeah, so there's not much open tonight, but it's still cool looking around. Oh, that looks cute. Little cafe.
Aw, carrot tree.
This is Mr. Washington. This is Mr. Lafayette. This is Mr. Rochambeau. That's not how you say that. And this is Mr. Degrassi. He's tall.
One thing that was unique about this trip was the fact that Dayton worked each day from our hotel room. So we limited our time at each historical site for when he got off work at 3 p.m., which is why we only had 1 hour to drive the battlefield tour before closing. Thankfully, we felt like we had a little more time to play with the next day when we went to explore Jamestown. It is day 2 of our visit to the historic triangle, and today we are visiting the second smallest or the second largest, whatever one you want to say, which is Jamestown.
So we're headed to Fort James. We kind of skipped the whole museum to go to Fort James. It's a living history example of what it was like back when this was founded in the 1600s. So that should be pretty cool. They'll have like blacksmiths, I think, and all the cool stuff.
Nice to find out we were still using plate armor out here, but it was very much a common sight in the fort. But yeah, most of the armor that we were using was actually going to be made back home in England and then purchased by the Virginia Company and shipped over. So my job was to maintain it and repair it if it got damaged. So, well, right now what I'm doing is making a new helmet. These are 2 pieces that I've hammered into shape that will get joined together along the middle. Once I get the 2 lips hammered in, they will nestle into each other and I can start joining them together along the middle with rivets.
Let's go inside.
Oh, it's a bedroom. Oh, I'm assuming on warmer days and maybe earlier in the days there's more artisans out working. Like this is probably the woodworking versus we just saw the blacksmith, right?
Correct, that's the blacksmith.
Oh, where'd Ian go? He's back in the building. Oh, there you are. He really likes going into the buildings. Aw, are you all armored up?
Oh, that sounds like a fierce one you got there.
Little do you know.
So, Jerry is the new world going, your majesty, I just offered another part. You weighted down.
He's like, okay, Dad, I'm done with this armor stuff. He's off.
Yeah.
Oh, look. Now we got a soldier dad, too. I don't think his armor fits him properly.
So we're in the living history part of Jamestown, but Jamestown was originally started by the Virginia Company, which was basically a bunch of Londoners who wanted to go out and explore New World and make money from it. And so This is the very first English settlement in America is Jamestown. Oh, I'm out of breath. I'm out of breath.
It's hard running with armor, isn't it?
Sure is. It was one of 3 public buildings in Fort James, named after the King of England then, James I.
Oh, neat. I gotta look at the pews. That looks uncomfortable. I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna listen to your sermon.
Sermon, buds. Amen. Again. There's candles up there. They must have lit, so they had light.
Yeah?
But the light of the world is Jesus.
That's a really tall pulpit.
It is.
You're like 8 feet up, probably.
You can really make our voices boom.
He keeps pointing up. The preachers were in prison when they preached. They had their own little Oh, he's gonna run from church again. There he goes.
No nursery in this church.
So one cool thing about Jamestown, or I guess this is Fort James, but this place is amazing if you have kids. I feel like Yorktown was good, but this place is even better for kids, especially like toddlers who just want to run around and explore. So that's a good thing to know if you're traveling with kids.
So after leaving Fort James, we're going to the recreation of the 3 ships that brought the first settlers in 1607 from England to Jamestown.
Oh, neat.
You're coming aboard the Godspeed. In 1607, the original Godspeed carried 52 men to Jamestown. Over 6,000 miles of ocean on that voyage that lasted almost 5 months.
Oh, cool.
Possibly some hammocks as well.
Yes.
But a bed like this would be for multiple people. Yeah, for the captain's cabin also.
Is this the captain's cabin?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, cool. It's not as luxurious as when I read novels. I picture in my mind's eye, you know?
Right.
Okay, we came on these ships at like the prettiest possible time.
Oh yeah.
It's like sunset right now. Do you like the ship, Ian?
Steering the ship, buddy.
He's sure trying.
The final place around the Jamestown settlement is the Native American village, which has a name that I don't know what it is, but we're gonna go see that. And it's also living history because I see smoke over there.
Yeah.
Fire.
I'm trying to hide it from you guys how silly I look, but
You look cute.
I have my earmuffs on. It's so cold today. And with the earmuffs, really I've been comfortable, but without them, it's quite cold.
I just have to yell at her.
Yeah, he does, because all my hearing is muffled currently.
Somewhere that the men would spend a little bit of time hunting and trapping throughout the years and the seasons.
Oh, it's very dark in here. But to be honest, this one feels more cozy to me than the Jamestown one.
It makes me, looking at it, think of like how life back then is really just like you like every day is just not really surviving, but you're just focused on what am I going to eat today, like what's my housing going to be prepared with, like
How am I gonna stay warm?
Yeah, and then like how do I defend if somebody comes and attacks me? But it's like when modern day people go out and camp, like it reduces the amount of things you worry about. You're not worried about cyber attacks. like, so also, by the way, here there is like the historic place with all the artifacts and stuff not guys really dig. We didn't do that today because we thought Ian would be bored by it, but there is like the actual settlement other than living history here.
This one was really fun though.
Very.
I really enjoyed this.
Me too.
And I think Ian did too.
Because he actually got to run around.
And tomorrow, Williamsburg.
Yes.
So we'll see what we think about that one.
Williamsburg is massive compared to the other two places we've already visited. Dayton and I felt a little bit overwhelmed with visiting for just one day, but we figured if we feel like we don't see it all, we can always just come back in the future. Williamsburg is made up of 3 streets currently that is filled with people that are dressed in the colonial time period clothing and living colonial lifestyles. Our favorite street was Duke of Gloucester, which even includes a more modern area where we could stay once the rest of Williamsburg closed down for the night.
So for day 3, we're visiting Williamsburg, the biggest. It definitely is. This town's huge. And so Williamsburg eventually became the capital after Jamestown was burned down. And so this was the capital for a while until they moved the capital of Virginia to Richmond.
Go for it. I was a little worried that this place wouldn't be quite as child friendly because the thing about Williamsburg compared to like Jamestown or Yorktown is it's still currently like a metropolis. I don't know if metropolis is the right word. Like it's still an active downtown. There's restaurants, so there's like people walking around in costume where they'll explain the history and stuff. It's very interactive, but I was worried because it is still a downtown. So I wasn't sure how kid friendly it would be, but at least in the governor's palace, the backyard, perfect for Ian and other toddlers, but it's just garden area where they can run. So he's gonna be in his stroller a lot today, but at least for here, he's getting his exercise.
So some of the buildings in colonial Williamsburg are actually original buildings from the 1600s versus others are reconstructed, and they'll say that on a little plaque. That's cool to think some of these buildings have been there that long. Like, makes you think that the reconstruction is actually probably pretty legit to what it was back then. Glad I live in the 21st century with YouTube. So an example of original building is this Charlton wig maker. So he made wigs for people including Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry. It's weird thinking of like you read books about, you know, Jefferson and he came here and got his wig made. It's also funny that they wore wigs back then.
So one thing that I'm noticing is different about Williamsburg versus say Jamestown or Yorktown is the fact that this feels a lot more modern. It's still extremely colonial, of course, but I feel like Jamestown was like a settlement of like a fort or like just soldiers coming over, versus this is actually like a community with like restaurants or taverns and storefronts and houses.
I think it partially makes sense because like Jamestown was kind of in a swamp, and so once it burned down once, they kind of moved to Williamsburg. It was like, oh yeah, it's much nicer to live here. So I think that's why is like Jamestown was rough to live that way versus Williamsburg. They liked it. There was a college, been in college here forever. So
Williams and Mary College.
Yeah, William and Mary College. So like in that sense, I think that's probably why it feels more modern and normal, because they actually could establish normal life.
And now you know we're entering into the way more modern area of Williamsburg when all of a sudden there's Christmas lights and trees.
Look how big our lasagna is. I don't know how one person's supposed to eat that. Like, we didn't get anything special. It was just like one entree. We're splitting.
We are splitting it.
Maybe taking some of it home.
It's massive. Ian's got his noodles over there and his movie.
I really do want dessert, but
I don't know if we'll have
maybe
room
we'll get
for
dessert
it.
to go.
Yeah.
What? It sounds good.
I know.
We don't have it. Of course, we had to get the cake, but to go because that lasagna was too much.
We're very full, but we'll eat it tonight.
Is that a ball? How many balls are there?
Ball.
One ball, two ball. Green one.
So.
That's a gold one.
Yeah.
Who is this?
I don't know. He's writing something.
Is it Alexander Hamilton? Jefferson? Or is it Jefferson?
I don't know.
Who are you, sir? Really? Belly.
It's very stoic.
You tickled him. Okay, Dayton, so here's some rapid fire questions for you about the historic triangle. Which one was your favorite of the three?
Jamestown.
Which one is the most interesting history?
Jamestown.
Which one's the oldest of the three?
Jamestown.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Which one was your least favorite?
Probably Yorktown, just because Battlefields with Ian, we just drove around. Like, it was cool, but it's probably my least favorite.
What is 2 things you would do differently if you came back?
If I only have like a couple hours before closing in Williamsburg, I would not pay the fee to see things because they're mostly all closed anyways. And I might come back when it's warmer so there's like more things open.
What do you think is something that we did well?
I think like Jamestown, it was okay that we did it in that amount of time because there's not that much more for us with Ian and letting him run.
Yeah, Ian running.
Yep.
Is the historic triangle good for toddlers?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I think it's good.
I think it's good.
Yeah, I just think Yorktown was probably, but like if you had more time at Yorktown.
Also, if it was warmer, it would be way better.
If it was warmer and you had more time with light, it'd be even better. But like Jamestown was really good with toddler.
Okay, last rapid fire question. Are you ready to skip out on the historic triangle and go to Busch Gardens?
Yes!
Come back next week to see Busch Gardens.
Yeah.
Dayton, one more last rapid fire question. Which place has the best parking?
Not here.
I think Jamestown did.
I think so too.